It's finally happened. Subaru has released the 2022 Subaru WRX. We were waiting for the next generation for so long. It is finally here, and in today's video, I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about the 2022 Subaru WRX, different specs, what makes it different, when we think we're going to be able to see it, how much it's going to cost, and most importantly, what this release means for the 2022 STI. Even if you watch the press release, stick through the video because I'm going to give you some interesting insights about this newest generation WRX and what we can expect. Here's the deal. I'm both excited about the release and I'm also a little bit disappointed, but don't get down by my disappointment because my disappointment is my own thing, and I think Subaru's actually done something that might have just revolutionized the game they're playing with the WRX and the STI, and it might have actually addressed what we've wanted for a long time, is bigger differentiation between the STI and the WRX, and we might just see that. But we've got to look at some key things that are on this new WRX to understand whether or not that's going to happen with the STI. It can give us a little bit of an inclination of what we can expect. Let's first talk about what's new on the brand new generation WRX. I'm going to roll a little bit of an intro before we get too far into the video so you guys can see my 2016 Subaru WRX, and if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please consider subscribing. And at the very least, if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button because it's free to do, it's free to you, and it really helps the channel grow, and it lets me know that this is content you guys want to see. The flagship difference between the 2015 through 2021 WRX and the 2022 Plus WRX is the engine. We went from an FA20, which is a 2-liter, to the FA24, which is a 2.4 liter. So we've got bigger displacement, but unfortunately, the newest generation WRX only comes with an addition of 3 horsepower. Before you guys go crazy about the addition of 3 horsepower, I think this was done intentionally, and I'll talk about it in the videos to come, but I really think Subaru in this case has made it so that WRX is in its own class. It's now separating that gap even further between the WRX and the STI, and I really think the WRX is going to be the car that catches your daily commuters, your more average consumers, and the STI will be more for the enthusiasts. From a business standpoint, this makes sense for them because then they can charge their enthusiasts more money to access the platform. It also gives them potentially more money to invest in that platform, the STI, and they can deliver more power. And if that platform gets more expensive, they can then spend more money on it and compete with more expensive cars like the 400Z, maybe even the Supra. But it also allows them to have a bigger market for the WRX and potentially catch more of that market of that, that daily commuter consumer market. For us WRX enthusiasts that aren't necessarily STI enthusiasts, I don't necessarily find myself in that position, but I love the WRX. It's a little disappointing, and I was really hoping for a car that came with more power, but with bigger displacement, we can assume there's going to be faster acceleration, and we can assume that there's going to be more tuning potential for the WRX. So from a performance standpoint, that's really all that's changed. From a 0 to 60, I move forward standpoint, let's just say, because some stuff has changed regarding handling and steering response, and we'll talk about that shortly. So the biggest difference from a performance standpoint is the engine between these two cars, but unfortunately we don't know the 0 to 60 times, but we can expect them to be maybe a little bit better, but very similar. And I think where we're going to see the benefits of the FA24, which is the bigger displacement engine, is in the aftermarket tuning community. So from a form and function standpoint, what else is different about the WRX? Well, they've done a couple things. They've kept the manual transmission, saved the manual. They've kept the CVT transmission. They've added a GT model, which is the CVT model. It's a little unclear whether you can buy the CVT as a premium or limited because it's going to be base, premium, limited, and GT. And the way that it looks at it is the GT model is only CVT, and I think that might be the only way you can buy the CVT, but we'll have to see as the market comes out. Subaru has also said that they changed the location of the stabilizer bar, or more of where it's mounted to, so now it's mounted to the body and not the subframe, and Subaru is claiming that on the newest generation WRX, we're going to see improved strength, a lower center of gravity. We'll be able to translate in our butt dyno is less body roll. They've also switched to a dual pinion power steering rack, which will give users, consumers, us, you and me, a better driving experience, slightly better road feel and handling from a wheel. And basically what's interesting here is Subaru took a car that already handles really well and theoretically made it even better. I mean, achieving a lower center of gravity is going to make a huge difference in how we use these cars. And I think what we're seeing right now is Subaru taking the WRX and getting it closer and closer to that BRZ market, where you've got enthusiasts that care a little bit less about power and much more about driving and handling and how fast they can go around curves. More importantly, how much they have to brake and slow down to make around a curve, which the WRX already succeeded in, not as well as the BRZ, but did pretty damn good compared to the rest of the market. And I think what Subaru is trying to do is if they can get closer to that BRZ market, maybe they can convert some of their BRZ owners into WRX owners, which is a more expensive car, which might even lead into the STI, which will make them more money down the line. And this is financial stuff, but ultimately we're seeing that the WRX might be separating from a power performance vehicle into something that's more handling and general performance related, like we see with the BRZ and that lower class of sports car like the GTI. What's interesting here is we could be seeing what Volkswagen has done really effectively. We could be seeing the difference between the GTI and the Golf R. There's a substantial difference in performance. They're very different cars, and maybe that's what we're going to see with the WRX and the STI, because in the previous generation, those two cars were pretty close, and a lot of you guys are going to fight me in the comment section, but for a little bit of money, you can take the WRX much farther than what the STI can do. I agree on a track, the STI is going to win, but if you're a daily driver and you're at a stoplight and you want to have some fun against an STI and you're in a tuned WRX, even if the STI is tuned, unless you've spent significantly more money, the STI likely won't be able to greatly outperform the WRX, and you might find more often than not they're pretty equal. So if we see that difference starting to happen, it might strengthen the community behind the STI and strengthen the conviction that you need to buy an STI to get that performance. So what else has changed with the WRX? Because I've talked about things that probably don't sound too significant. Well, I think one thing the WRX has made great improvements on is the interior of the car. Now, the WRX has changed the global Subaru platform, so we're going to see different characteristics surrounding just the car in general. It's going to be, from a safety standpoint, it's going to be probably a much safer car, and it's going to comply with a lot of other things other Subarus have. But where that really succeeds is the interior of the car. We might lose some of the sportiness. I'm sure if you have the Recaro seats, it really adds to it, but we're seeing more convenience in these cars, which for historically, we haven't seen a lot of convenience. Frankly, the last generation, the 2015 through 2021, was one of the best interiors we've gotten so far with the WRX and STI, and I wasn't a WRX owner until that, because I always looked at those interiors before I was fully sold on the performance, and I was like, wow, I don't know if I could spend a lot of time in it. Having owned them, I care less about the interior, but you can see that that notion is probably held by a lot of people, and they've changed that with the new WRX. And where you can really see that is we've gone from a 6 and 7 inch screen to an 11.6 inch touchscreen, and it makes up, like, it gives me the Tesla vibes, even though that's not the case, but it's going to come with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto. So they've really stepped up what the interior experience is like. They've made a lot more customization part of that display, and where you can set features with the car, and just Subaru has taken the right step with the WRX as technology goes, and I hope that that continues, but I'm excited to see what that has to offer, because these cars still feel like the Stone Age, but for a reason, because they're a performance car. We're not here to drive 1,000 miles, but I've got to say, you probably could now, because it's a lot more comfortable. And of course, the last thing with this car, because I've talked about function here, is visually what's the difference. And I've held off talking about this until the very end, and we're still going to talk about the STI, so don't jump yet. But what's different with the visual side of this car? Well, the car looks different. It very much plays into the look they were going with the 2022 BRZ, and we're seeing a lot of those carryovers. I've got to say, I'm not entirely thrilled with how it looks. I also am not that disappointed. I think it could have gone much worse, but I think Subaru lost a few of the things that make their car super aggressive. Obviously, I haven't seen one of these in person yet, so I can't comment specifically, but I think some of the body lines and the way they've structured some of those aggressive features in the VA generation WRX have been lost in the newest generation. I think it adds a different kind of aggressive, but it doesn't have that same blocky Subaru hard angle feel like it's done for many of the generations of this car. Actually, just all years, essentially. I retract that, minus the 2008, 2009 WRXs, but you guys most of you will probably agree with me. We're gonna see improved headlights, improved taillights. What do they look like? Well, you can see for yourself. I don't really love the way they look, but it is what it is, and I absolutely love the way the taillights look on the current generation, so I'm just biased because I'm a big super fan of the current generation. But otherwise, we see what a lot of manufacturers are doing right now. They're taking away a lot of the way car panels were used to be constructed, and they're putting on a lot more of this. It's like a satin matte finish of plastic, and it's not a bad thing, and from an economic standpoint it makes a lot of sense. But what I personally feel is that plastic that you see covered on the WRX and see on a lot of other cars, especially like SUVs that are becoming like sport SUVs, you see it very commonly. I think it fades, and it fades pretty poorly in the sun. I think it's one of the things that looks not that great, and from a person that cares about the way the outside of my car looks, I think it's just something that I tend to try to eliminate on the cars. So I'm a little disappointed that that's the direction Subaru went. I agree that there is some functionality behind it, the economics are behind it. I'm just a little disappointed because I liked that unique, like all the body panels were fully molded. You didn't get a lot of that except on the rear of the car, but it is what it is. So it'll be interesting to see these on the street when they actually come to the street. Subaru doesn't expect them to hit lots until early 2022, and I think that is an aggressive timeline. There's a pretty heavy expectation that microchips and the whole supply chain issues that are going on right now are going to be fixed at that point, and that they're going to have vehicles. You'll probably definitely be able to pre-order them around Christmas time. That's my best guess. As for cost, I'm assuming that we're going to get a $3,000 to $4,000 increase across all models. And most importantly, what does this mean for the 2022 STI? Well, I've kind of alluded to it this entire video. I think Subaru released somewhat of an underwhelming WRX intentionally to then capture that audience with the STI. And an underwhelming WRX doesn't mean too much negative. It means that a lot of current WRX owners are probably going to move to the STI, right? And it also means that the underwhelming WRX might look better for a different population, and we might see this community grow. We might see this community change in how they feel and what they drive, and whether they're WRX or STI owners. And we're going to see that likely increase. When is the STI coming? I don't know at this point. I don't even have a good guess. I'd like to say it's going to come in the next couple months, but it really depends on how far they're going. My assumption is that they've waited for the release to gauge the opinion of both what's happening with the 400Z and other cars that are competing at a higher level, and to gauge what the response is for the WRX, because if they're already in the global platform, one, we can assume the STI is going to look very similar, but I think that they still have time to make remediations and adjustments to the engine. Now, these adjustments are probably in the means of 10 or 15 horsepower, like we saw with the Type RA, where they used the EJ that was existing, made a few changes, and they got more. So my guess is that they've already basically built this car. It's basically already there, and if they did make a tweak, we're still going to see a small tweak, which isn't going to increase the tuning capacity. We've got the same threshold. So when I think about the STI, I think about what it can achieve in a tunable state, because that's what we're all going to do. Well, I know that I've been talking for a while, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know that I started probably on the less interesting thing for a lot of you guys, but I wanted to start about the very few differences that we're going to see. I mean, there are other differences here. I'm not claiming this is the only thing, but these are the significant differences that I wanted to bring to the table, quite literally, because this is an impromptu video. So it's currently the day of the release, and I want to release this video tomorrow to inform you guys, and I'll have more information coming out about the 2022 Subaru WRX. Thank you guys for watching. Smash the like button if you enjoyed the video. Thanks for being here.